It's live. I'm gonna start by fixing my audio because when I listen to the recording later, uh, the noise is cut off very quickly. I've noticed it. No one has said anything about it, but I think it could be called close threshold. So I'm just going to keep speaking to see drop off rate. Let's see. This might be it. Let's try again. Whether it's the correct one or not, I'll only know. Okay, hello everybody. Last stream was on Thursday. We were working on our factory script. It's gonna close a few things that are necessary for this work. So the goal is to work on this custom panel we are putting in Godot. We are trying to create tools that will facilitate creation of game assets. Because we have hundreds of models, so we want an easy, seamless way to do this because there's probably going to be changes in Blender, and we'll be importing those changes to Godot. So I think we may have to override our assets and make changes through a visual tool rather than doing it. But to give you scope, what I'm talking about is these. This is the factory right now. So this scene will have visual representation that lies on this node. This is some other stuff that will be relevant to this game object. If we look at the example created out of this model, trellis, we have the trellis visual representation, under representation, and this trellis has soil part that is part of the contents node. This game object itself is actually this trellis. This is the model, but this whole thing is the game. Then we have the receptacle part for this trellis. This comes with 5 possible spots where the player can grow vegetables or whatever. The other interactive part is also relevant because this game object essentially will be interactive, meaning unlike some other game objects in the world, say like you have a fence between your yard and yours. That fence, although it's part of the world, won't be interactive. You cannot click it, move it anywhere else. So when this node is dropped into this game, it will respond to the player's click. This blue area is essentially marking. And then this guy basically works in tandem with receptacle. And we are going to have many more nodes here that define the behavior of this game. One such node is rotate. If any game object has a rotate node, that game object will be rotated. So we decided to go with a compositional workflow rather than this work, as it's often suggested in object-oriented. Because if you look at if you look at the object classification, so far We are trying to do this top, but we will have animals, plants, other game objects that are going to act like inventory objects, and tools that the player will interact with. So each one will be interactive, but not every object will be rotated. So we'll be basically decorating our possible actions. To facilitate the creation of this game object, this is the interface we are going. Right now, a version of this is already running through script variables, but this is very tightly coupled, because this script will have to be unassigned, because right now it's always working, because it's a tool script. So this doesn't actually include any game logic, but this is only including sort of asset creation. This has to be decoupled and coupled game logic. So this workflow is only useful to a certain extent. So we are trying to take this logic, put it into a tool, so that this object can be assigned proper game logic. So we'll put the rotation and other asset factors. So this is where we left off last time, populating these items. Let's dive into the code. This piece of code. Just gonna write a message to the chat window. Basically define the scope of the work for the time being. More or less accurate. I think I should be creating. Yeah, I did the signals. I connected the correct signals. We start the. This tree is active. We load the data. Start setting the. There was some shortcut solution here. Because instead of manually calling these, say if we are changing group, we need to register the value of that drop down, and then it's going to pre-fill the model drop down, which means that it's going to by default select something. Instead of manually triggering this, it actually fire it. But I think I kind of bypassed here for the sake of the end of the stream. This is also not clearing the list. It's binding multiple times because this actually ran twice. I believe at some point it might third time. If I actually do the proper. But yeah, this has to be clear. Yeah, because we had that problem with structure and tool. So before you add anything, you have to listing just like this. We need category options. Let's clear it. Then add the items. If this proves to be the same kind of code, that we are not triggering, say actually, the initial plan was to trigger functions within each other. Like when you set the group, you trigger the next function call. If that doesn't happen inside these set functions, but it's handled differently, so then all set methods look similar, the exception of this being the difference. I may actually make one function. We will have set categories, set keys. So it could be like set drop down, and then you pass the drop down, which in fact we could actually do that right now. We could actually force our hand to do the other work. That you could call it populate drop down as well. Drop down. Essentially this. Just need to figure out what this way we are actually nodes underrepresented. That's it. So this is essentially a string. Is let's this out bottom. So this is generic enough. Generic enough. Now we made this generic. This is going to be drop down. Going to be the string, but we need to be careful here, the way we are passing the, because this is what's going to be passed down. You can't just say category. And that groups is going to complain because this is where we were doing that. When you set the groups, you kind of need to know which groups you are gonna fill this in, fill in this drop down, because we have structure and tool for equipment, but planting and so for planting category we have vegetables, herbs and mushrooms. So let's say we have 5 groups, but they have to be listed on the right category. So to pull the right category, this is actually because now this has been consolidated. Group option. But how will it know what to list? Right now, this was categories. syntactically correct, logic wise. I think this is when we were in variables. What categories? I think it's prudent to change this into. I always start with a string. So we will essentially have category group role. These are all strings because we are trying to create a structure like so. When a category is selected, because it's I think instead of forcing the 0th index selected, this is when we can create trigger signals. So going to be selected. When you emit this, because the first item is going to trigger, is then going to set the category. And you are going to read the text from the selected index. Then you set options in here. Okay, see, here's the thing. Although I thought these two were the same, categories is pulling everything from roots, but this is pulling it from data. So this is, I might have to do the more broken down with this solid, because now we are going to create we need to know the tree structure. Let's look at the data. For that, I turn on our good old friend, the studio code. So here are the categories: EQP plan, equipment plan. And actually, when you want to see the groups, two groups under equipment, you actually go down in the and then the structures here. Vegetables, the models. For a tomato model, you have naturally, if this is written for the variety, this would have to be data category, of course, between square brackets, data category group model. Then all the possible keys under is the variety. I think there's some kind of happy medium. Okay. I think I will write the individual for but maybe the clearing can. Since it's already written. Clear drop down. Okay. Presentation get node. That's it. I'm responsible for clearing things. Then, not really. This was essentially correct. Either do this or we this. Just leave it like this was sort of. Okay, you boys come up here. This is no longer category. This is asset. Uh, this asset. I think this is no longer the same. I believe this may work just the way it is without a view. So let's plug in equipment structure. Changing planting this list populated. Are we even registering the planting text asset when we change it? Which is the set. Might also get an error. Email it get index planting. That's exactly because when I get this text, I'm actually getting the full planting but assigning the PLN. So for this has to be found. This has to be put in. And of course, because this is not assigned the correct abbreviation, then this is not going to find that abbreviation. Clear, rerun. It's just things. I think this might just be an error here because I don't think this has anything to do with the asset factor. It sounds just the tab itself. Okay, we shall see. Structure tool under equipment, that's good. Planting and perfect. On to filling the other two. Yep, this is what we. I'll get to the bottom of this. I think this is firing this thing. Anyhow, So just mindlessly copy and paste. That's how true ingenuity starts. Mindlessly doing things, only stumbling upon the exit. That's it. These four are done. On to the next page. Now we are writing this. Because set groups will, as soon as I set the groups, just like I'm setting the categories and triggering selection signal, I'm gonna trigger it in. So whichever one is setting the next drop down will trigger the population as well as signaling the selection. Of course, this is also going to focus on index model. So this time though, we are actually setting the group. That group is going to group options. And this is now in turn going to set model. This actually is similar. Group option. Group option. Signal. Item select. Something like model option. Let's put a and here. So these two are related. Just like these two are. Let's continue the charade here on model selected. Model set variety and varieties. On variety selected. Danger of copying and pasting. I was stating what I'm assigning. We no longer need to do anything here. Just assign it to variety. And here we can actually construct the full path. And I think I need some kind of a label area to see the full ID. This interface is going to change a lot anyway, but which means I'm probably going to have to update all this. Sure. Because if I change something now, I'm going to go back and forth between something. So let's stick this under the grid label. And you're going to look like shit because. So what kind of interface am I? We definitely needed something. We need positions. We need checkboxes for rotation. Maybe an inventory. I've written that something can be a receptacle. Then you choose a number of positions. Everything is interactive, that's why we are. So by default, we should always add the interactive. Then rotate, inventory. Something can be an animal. And I think I'll have tool being to the list. Tool. The pen is structure. And sort of action holder. Might be a terrible name right now, but it is what it is. Let's go back to the problem. So most likely the VBucks listing the properties of asset. Here we are actually choosing the I think it makes sense that this is going to be a long long tail. Also noticing when I did this, I'm getting the variety, which is actually this is not entirely true. Because when we get to groups and models, we are still interested in reading the key. But when you get to these are all keys. But when you are looking at varieties, you're looking at an array. The array will have objects, and each object's name is the variety. So this is not correct. This part is correct. This is the model. You no longer have keys. Here you have arrays. So here for each variety will have a name. Or essentially adding that name. The name itself will be this. It's MD5 code. Actually, no. This is still correct, but we have to fix because this is where we are going to see stone. It's all the stone tile models. Varieties. The varieties will be the custom names with their hash code. Do we have the? It's under structures. Yeah, what I'm talking about. 5 stone tile. So So for structure, we are going to see stone tile, and stone tile there will be 5 options. Naturally, we would want here's so whichever one is selected. This is here we are starting stone tile. That's still good. This has to be changed. Just like that, this is also changing. Okay, we are still selecting the index, but we need to parse down the so instead of getting the text from the index, gotcha. And this is actually here. You are trying to read the data. Data.asset category. Okay. Asset group. Whichever model has been selected. And now the index number is the thing, and user MD5 property. That is the technical variety, the variety bit. Then you could do this thing which we are trying to do. Label. I think this should be put in its proper container. I think this is going to be called representation. As well. I think we could have an H box here. Okay. Then we will have presentation as a grid, but it actually needs a label. So this was going to now have a V box. If we are going to have V box, then I change this to grid. This is now going to have representation. And properties. And with vertical separator, let's make it 3 columns. Let's put a precept later. Okay. Here is properties. Put this here. This is the representation. I think this it's safe to call this representation because this I'm kind of doing it all at once, so it makes sense. But once it's displayed, it's gonna this V-box is going to be here. This is going to accept the other way. This is here. This has to be called represent. Also, this is the label. You have to be okay. It's here. Can we make this correct? So let's actually have some preview here. So here's representation group of controls, vertical separator, and we are going to have the list of properties. Of course, we don't know whether this is not because I haven't tested it yet. It's a mundane. And the fact that it's not working is because I screwed up all everything here. I'm gonna go and on some tea. See. So that label under representation. So that's the this is the actually the title representation. We need something. This is sort of the asset ID. This is gonna go in here. Have a bit of space here. Asset ID. Are going something. Asset ID text is going to be asset variety. And I now have to all these paths. Yes. Everything now. How can I make if I do this? Let me see. If you don't want to do this over and over again, you could store these in tables. Let's update this. I don't think it's too much bother, right? Until it is. If this structure changes again, I'm definitely gonna put these. I think I already screwed it up. I was clicking in the middle, so when it fixed it, it also see kept. Oh boy. Okay, variables. When you but this is not going to not an export thing because not really export this. It should be an already var category option. I think this is what we'll do. Then you do get node here, which is essentially the category. You do this multiple times. Group options. Group options. Options. All options. I'm gonna say, wow, there's duplicates. This. So don't need this. This. Do search and this is all screwed up in. What's the shortcut? It's only one anyway. Because here, kind of pick. Excuse me. That's it. Clean where we category options. So this is where we can this three matches. What those three? Oh, the first one is the one that I actually placed. This one and this one. Fine. Listen, learn. I think I'll do this like this next. Too many calls to the same save. Clear output. Fetch the plugin. Not cool. Something is not connected. Oh, this one. Clear. Fetch. Um, the reason why we do this is because there is no ready, or is there? Because this was not quite working. Are you really? Okay, that actually works. The fact that that works, this should work. Invalid code, no. So clearly fails in line 48. Okay, enter tree is firing before ready. Where is our report? I am faster than. And indeed it is. So what are you trying to connect to an object that actually is not ready? So which is, I think we could, I think in this one instance we could do it this way. This is that other tabs error. This is just refreshed it. However, this is still not. This is running. This is where I haven't actually fully tested, but it's actually working somewhat. This model part is where. So when we choose group, actions. This group, it. We set the group. This is still the key in Legend because that's fine. Then we are trying to set the models. Let's go in that. Clear the list. Then this is EQP. This is tall. Let's look at our EQP tall. This will have keys, which are travel bucket and that's good. Oh, this is where it's not this can't be like this. This is the key itself. There is no legend. However, let me just see those model names. Yeah, 95. Invalid get index of. I'm actually interested in maybe the whole key. Let's see. And since we are, well, no. Am I not registering this properly? I thought I did. Okay, so let's disable this. I don't think I actually did anything yet with ID so far. Few matches. Yeah, I was trying to do something and I on variety selected, I'm doing this. So okay, cancel this call. Set varieties. So forget about this. Say while you're processing, always put going to be the ID anyway. Asset. Yeah, I think there was a way to do this with the format, right? So you actually find the whole format, yeah, and you just pass the whole dictionary. And then this is category, more human readable model. Nope, group. It's going to match them inside the asset dictionary. So this, it's all blank. PLN is correct. Mushroom is correct. The fact that it did not pre-register, but it's sort of forced to fill out once I'm making a selection. It's kind of okay, but equipment, yeah, I haven't done the auto trigger, so each one has to trigger the other one. This is still showing the mushroom, even though equipment should now show UQP, STR, and if this was properly selected, it should have shown pot. Then this would have read pot. And of course, this would have been trouble. Okay, so I guess I haven't figured out the auto triggering yet. It's working. So let's, of course, now it's been outputting all those here. On model selected, on varieties expected one argument, but called with you're expecting me to, but okay, I think these are working just fine. It's only responsible for filling the drop down. Just a temporary thing to see it. These two are good. They are done. Yeah, it even starts even here. I actually specifically didn't want to. Actually, since I'm force selecting the first item, this might be when category is selected. I'm filling it with the proper groups. This is actually finding the category and selecting the groups that belong to the, therefore see. clear. No error. That's very good news. Come here. Perfect. Equipment structure pod trouble. This is the trouble ID. Of course, this name is. Did I really put trouble under pod? Equipment structure pod. I might have. I was doing a lot of. Yeah, I did. Okay. Everything is trouble because I was duplicating the spreadsheet. I only changed the spreadsheet name, but not cell value. So that's correct as far as data goes. Planting herb oregano red robin as the. This looks correct. This looks like. Of course, the data is all screwed. Let me just go to Google spreadsheet. There was a lot of copying and pasting there. We are under We are under planting or herb. Under oregano. Okay, correct. Again, data is wrong, but the logic works just fine. Because if we go to vegetable and tomato, yeah, perfect. You choose the other one, the ID, but tomato, it doesn't change. It all belong. First three is okay. We're only changing the this whole pad is the 3D models ID. So that's correct. This will now have to be found in the file system so that it could be assigned to. It would be pulled and placed here under represent for the factory script. So similar to this, we are now going to need a new section here for populating the properties of this. At some point, I'll have to go and then cook lunch. See if we can actually do the basic layout here. If not, the business logic. So we have this properties section, which is another vertical box. It's something like so. Shamelessly copy this, stick it in here, relabel it back to this, call it properties, just like that. I think this could also use from pixel. I think we need we either need a VBox or grid container. Let's go with that. I'm gonna go with grid container because if I put the checkboxes here, but maybe I need to write some kind of explanation next to them, so I could arrange it, or I could also put tooltips. Let's go with grid, just like this one. The name of that will be, even this could be fine. So properties, options. And these options will be checkboxes. One checkbox will be interactive. Because I'm thinking we could extend this model to create non-interactive objects. Whether something is interactive or not. Let's put the text here. Whether an object can be rotated or not. Let's look at the list here. Receptacle. Let's duplicate a few times. Receptacle. Receptacle interactive rotate down. Inventory. Thing can be an inventory. Animal. Tool. Structure. And action all. Structure. Your tool is here. Animal will be here. Receptacle is. Okay, I'm glad I actually made this option so that I can fetch the plugin, open the plugin, hear this. And just for argument's sake, do it this way. Nice. Very, very nice. Can maybe set a minimum size for this. Business logic, UML diagrams a few days ago. Did you do a CS degree? Yes, I did. I did my CS degree in Turkey between 1999 and 2006. I basically finished the university in 7 years. The normal length was 4 years. I took my time. So, it's a good example of not following a conventional path. Although the program was computer science, it was the early days of internet or like web pages and all that stuff. So I decided to learn the web technologies more than tech. So I will answer your question, then I'll go do the lunch afterwards. But to finish the question or the answer, yeah. So the courses were basically algorithm, programming, networking, all the computer stuff. So UML was part of the program. So that was basically 15 years ago. Since then, I have done web development until August last year. That's when I found myself unemployed. I had already been looking into like changing career to game development, and instead of finding another web development job, I decided to go, start my own company and see how it goes. So when it comes to fixing problems, for me, just the nature of the problem is changing. I believe I have a strong analytical mind. I just have to organize the data and the workflow, that kind of. Some stuff in Godot in that sense is new, but you just look at references and learn and apply what you know from other fields into this new one. I've gone into this kind of lengthy explanation because sometimes people are worried whether they should actually go to game development school or anything. So you could. It gives you a structure, but it could be self-taught too. Problem is sometimes you may not know what you are missing. It's like that saying, like, don't know what you don't know. Like, if only you knew, like, would actually make things easier for you. But as long as you have an open mindset, you don't need to follow a. You just have to be smart about doing. just be aware of what you are doing. Um, I mean, for me, yeah, as corny as it may sound, Elon Musk is a role model, because when the guy decides to go to Mars or do some of the other cool stuff he does, there is no book or school out there. He's discovering it. It's not like there's some course taught in universities like how to go to Mars, how to land rockets. Like you understand the basics, but at some point you become the pioneer. So just start somewhere for everybody else. I'm saying for Nigel. But yeah, this is the business logic that this is going to be now creating game assets. Maybe there will be some kind of button here, and this still looks like we have to do this one by one for each model. Maybe it'll go like that initially, but the fact that this exists, we could automate that buttons job. Like maybe these properties could be held somewhere, and as long as they are kind of pre-filled and we are treating that button click kind of in an automatic way, then it's always abstracting more and more. Very helpful. But I think I'm going to wrap it up right here. Gotta do the lunch, then eat it. Possibly, I think an hour would be a short time, but I'll try my best. If not at 3:30, around 4 o'clock, I'll start another stream and go as long. So have a good afternoon. See you later.